Hello, Guardians. Welcome to Tower Casuals, the Destiny podcast. I'm your host, Corey Deering, and alongside me, as always, is the Jotun Toten, the Vault Dweller himself, the Vault Conquering, Josh Finney.
Multiple times Vault Conquering, by the way.
Hi,
How's
Josh. I missed you.
Hi, Corey. This is the first time that you and I have been on the show since,
I know. Dude, man, when I was listening to the show that you did last week, and I was like, man, I missed it. So I'm ready for some Vault action. But,
Vault is good. It was updated we went over it last week. It's been properly updated for D2 difficulty, I think, and for taking D2 supers and damage metas into account.
mm-hmm.
I like all of the changes to Vault, except I do have my nitpicks with the Oracles and Atheon. I do think that just requires so much precision to do. I think there's an unnecessary step in that, personally. The Detain bubble, okay, whatever. But doing Gatekeepers legit, I think, is genuinely harder than Atheon.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you have such a narrow window to do it in.
Yeah.
And all these timers, and everybody has to constantly be moving. I think that's just a bit too much. But other than that, it is what it is. I really like it.
Yeah, you messaged me like that day you guys completed it. First of all, I know you guys covered this last week, but challenge mode, huh?
Challenge mode is a fucking nightmare. I like that it's hard and that not everyone's going to get it, but I do think that this was much more accessible than Deepstone was on day one.
Oh, really?
I do. I do think it was much more accessible than Deepstone. I mean, there were more completions, frankly. I don't know if that means that it was easier, because this was open to everybody, regardless if you owned Beyond Light or not. There was hardly anything you had to do to get raid ready. It just kind of depended on the correlation with your team, your comms, and things like that. I mean, there were people who were getting stuck opening the vault for like 3 or 4 hours. It took us like 45 minutes, and we were like, God, that took forever. Yeah. Turns out we were like on the low end of some of the day one teams. But where it seems everybody started getting stuck at was at Oracles. We actually made it through Oracles really easily once we figured out that you had to go in order.
Yeah.
That actually wasn't too bad. Templar is what killed us. We got down to about a quarter without doing the optimal DPS strats. Without doing slug shotties or anything. We only had like 2 people on them, I think. Had we had another person on it, we'd probably do that day one, get through the Gorgon maze. I still think Gatekeepers is where we would have been held up. Yeah. Nobody knew about Promethean Lens yet. They wouldn't figure that out until the next day.
Yeah.
Which is when, I went and kind of fucked around, got Mythoclast.
Yeah, because you technically didn't clear it, you told me.
Yeah, so for anybody who missed last week, there was a glitch with Atheon, which is now patched, where as long as you killed yourself right after the Gatekeeper encounter, whoever was we call them Mars and Venus, whoever was on Venus in the jungle would respawn inside the portal, and Atheon's character model would just be chilling there. And you could kill him. It would take like 10 minutes to do so if it was you and another person. But you could kill him, and he would never shoot back at you, get as close as you wanted to him, the whole 9 yards. And once he was dead, all that had to happen was somebody had to shoot the cube to start the encounter, and the encounter would auto-complete. But it would not give you a raid completion. It wouldn't count as a completion for whatever reason. But you would get the loot from it.
That's strange.
It was very strange.
I mean, it's cool. I'm not it's cool, but it's just strange.
When we did it the next night, when we went for the legit clear, we went in there and we whittled them down to like 3%. We had Joe and my buddy Matt in there, and then came out. But the thing with that is then the pressure is on to get Oracles exactly right. Yeah, man. It's crazy. There's so many more supplicants than I remember in vaults. There's a lot of things. I think they updated it really, really, really well though in terms of difficulty. It feels like a fresh raid, even if you're a D1 veteran.
Yeah.
I've done probably 3 or 4 legit clears now. Look forward to doing a lot more. I want to keep doing it. I do think that having to do gatekeepers legit is going to thwart a lot of LFG teams now, just because your communication and your like precision has to be so on point in that encounter now. Like you have to constantly keep the portals open. You constantly be killing the champions. Like you can't just leave the same 2 people out there running around with the relic anymore.
Right.
I mean, I guess for now you can, because you can do colony, or you can, as video evidence has shown now, you can freeze the minotaurs and then push them off the cliff as long as you get them when they first spawn.
Yeah.
You can do things like that, but otherwise, no, you're just it's going to be a lot. Like it's going to require a team that's played together, and that's why I would say, like, I think Atheon may genuinely be easier now.
Yeah.
Just in terms of your timing and whatnot. So I'm excited to try it legit.
Yeah, I'm excited
if not, I'm gonna keep searching for cheeses.
I'm excited to jump in at some point in the next.
It's a great time. It's a great time.
Yeah. Although next week is it's a busy week for me with E3 coming up, but
yeah, it makes me hopeful for future raids that they bring back. It makes me really hopeful for what Crota or King's Fall could look like.
Yeah, that's what gets me excited is King's Fall. Like, what can they do or change in King's Fall?
Yeah, I said this last week. I think that King's Fall is probably the raid next summer that they'll bring back.
Yeah. I mean,
I feel like you're going to start with the new release schedule. I feel like you're going to get one new raid with the expansion, of course, and then you'll get one like during season 3.
Yeah.
Which, if you have Queen's Fall, why not bring King's Fall back?
Yeah. So, but I'm glad. It looks awesome. I actually went in like by myself just to just to walk around the outside and like just to see if you could like drive around Venus. Spoilers, you can't. They wall it off with those little Vex grids. Yep. But it's cool. Like I remember walking in there and just jumping up to the little plates and stuff, and it was cool, man. It brought back a lot of memories of the early days. So it was fun. But if you want to hear more about that, you can listen to last week's episode.
Yeah.
But Josh,
we'll touch on Vault again once Corey's able to do it.
Yeah. Which hopefully will be soonish. Other than that, Josh, how's your Destinying been?
It's good. It's double Nightfall rewards this week, so I ran a few Nightfalls this morning with Colonel Panic and Nerd Generalist. We ran a couple Masters, came away with several fusion rifles, lots of golf balls, lots of prisms. 2 Nightfalls I have 11 prisms hanging out in my Postmaster, I think, right now.
Wow.
So I can't pick any more up. I'm like, well, I guess I'm masterworking that full set of extra armor a lot earlier than I planned.
Wow.
Or starting to upgrade some exotics or something on my alternate characters.
What level Nightfall are you doing with that?
Masters. So we're doing Master Nightfalls. And then I have the Prosperity mod on as well, which gives you a better chance at getting Vanguard weapons from the completion of the Strike.
Okay. Cool. Well, sounds like
Colonel is saying all masterworked Vault armor now. I only got 3. I got 3 plug ones out of 2 Nightfalls. I didn't get quite as many as I wanted.
No, well, it's fine.
I am hoping with this new rotation that they have with the weapons, though, that we get double Nightfall for each weapon at some point, because I'd really like to grind out some more hung juries and some snipers. I really didn't feel like doing Insight Terminus last week again to go get sniper.
Yeah.
But that was if the pattern holds, I think I'm gonna have to go do. I think I screwed myself. I'm gonna have to do Glassway, I think.
What's the reward this week? The fusion?
Yeah, plug
fusion.
One. Yeah. Plug one is the one. It's a great fusion. Like, I don't really like legendary fusions, but it's a really, really good one. You can basically make it. Oh God, I just completely blanked on the name. I keep wanting to call it lasting impression, and it's not. That's a perk. It was the pinnacle fusion that Zavala had several seasons ago, and I'm completely forgetting the name. But Holler at me in the comments of this. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I don't know what I'm talking about because I forgot the name. But Corey.
Yes.
Before we get into stuff, we are like kind of waiting for the Schwab to come up.
Yeah.
We're actually going to dive into our topics first tonight, this afternoon.
Yeah. Early day. I get to be as loud as I want because my family is gone till 7.
I've never seen a man so excited for his family to not be home.
I know. Can you see this face?
I can. It's glowing, and I like it.
It is. I think that's my ring light. I can change colors, too. It's like a white now. I can make it... Hold on. Make it orange. Or blue. Or white. So...
It's funny, like, when you say that, like, I can't really tell the difference on your face, but I can tell whenever it flashes up.
Yeah. Oh, man. Too much fun, guys. Too much fun. By myself.
So we're going to jump into and talk about an interview that was done last night on another podcast that I like to listen to, Firing Line. Fallout plays, cool guy. They talked to some of these sandbox leads, to Chris Proctor and Kevin Yanes. They talked with them last night about a wide range of topics in the sandbox. And honestly, like, these are the kind of talks I want to see more. And I like that they did it with some content creators, especially with guys who are always breaking down builds, damage abilities, numbers, things like that. But I really wish Bungie would do things like this, like interviews with people like this on their own channel. I wish that we didn't have to have content creators literally have to beg developers to be on it. I understand they have a busy schedule, but publish this on your own channel. Like, if you have a major overhaul like the Stasis thing, I'd like for you to show us a before and after, for example.
It's kind of weird that they didn't.
I find it very weird that we didn't get like a video breakdown of that. Like, it's cool that you want to write all this out, and I appreciate that because I like to read all the patch notes. But when you're breaking down like, oh, time to kill is going to go from like 3.6 to 2.9, like, I want to see what that looks like tangibly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in action, even if it's just against a computer model, I want to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
You guys say that you've done extensive playtesting on all this. Like, even the community managers have been playtesting it. Damage was tweeting about it earlier. Like, show us the results of those playtests so we can actually see it in action and, like, know that, like, not like, oh, I'm calling you a fucking liar, you didn't actually play this, but show us some evidence that we know that it's been extensively play tested and you're not just throwing it and hoping it sticks, especially with something that you're saying was planned for next season and you had to like prioritize it to get it out 4 weeks into this season.
Right.
When a lot of this is stuff we've been yelling about since Beyond Light launched, right? Yeah. One of the early reports is, before we'll briefly touch on the Stasis stuff, but like, for example, Titan Behemoth has apparently been completely like neutered. In both PvE and PvP, and like they've always Tocom, one of the devs who's active on Reddit and handles a lot of the gameplay engineering, has already come out and said in a Reddit thread, like, no, this is already on our radar to like fix that in PvE. Like, we're gonna actively go in and buff it. Like, I think it sounds like they had to deliver it like across the board first, and then they can go back and buff specific things for PvE.
Yeah.
Maybe it just had to be like across the board at first. Like, I've heard shurikens don't feel great in PvE right now, for example. And that was something that needed destroyed in PvP, but not in PvE. Like, that is a huge, on our Master Nightfall runs, for example, like, we would chuck, I'd chuck a freezing grenade and we'd be laying in, and then, they're down, we've got goblins down to like half or a third health. Boom, here's both my shurikens, shatter everything. Do all the shatter damage to everything. That whole cluster is wiped out. That helped, with the goblins, with the Cabal dogs, like, it really, really helped.
Right.
And I mean, especially when dogs can basically one-hit maul you.
Yeah.
It's a problem. But getting back to the topic at hand, the interview that happened last night, I want to touch on some highlights. I am taking this from a summary on Reddit. I haven't had a chance to watch the full video myself. But there's a lot of key comments on here, and there's a few in particular that content creators, and I'm not going to name names, but if you know what I think about certain big name players in this community, you can probably guess who is already complaining about some of these. And it's gotten to a point where I don't even want to deal with it anymore because it's just aggravating. So they talked about some of the design goals for Stasis initially. Freezing champions to give yourself a breather was definitely a great use case, such as in the Glassway Strike. And for PvE, that was the goal, to give yourself room. And they wanted something to counter the aggression in PvP, specifically shotgun apes and pogo jumping hunters. In playtests, we thought, why would I ever want to freeze a dude instead of one-hit KOing him? So that kept haunting us. I think we kept just tuning it up and up until we probably ended up regretting it. We kind of knew out of the gate we would have to nerf it a bit. I remember one of the developers saying, we're going to have to hit this 3 or 4 times. And that's basically the point that we're at now. This is like the third and by far the biggest
3 or 4 times.
Like, they knew this out of the gate. And, like, here's the thing. Like, I know we sound like Bungie apologists. Like, I don't even want to imagine what it must be like to have to develop. You're trying to develop a damage type, and then you suddenly have to work from home halfway through making your new expansion. You're already trying to deliver a bunch of other gameplay updates. Like, it's a live service game. This is the first new element you've introduced since the launch of Destiny 1. Like, they're going to touch on this later. This is the first thing that these guys were not here for the original damage types when they were made.
Right.
Like, that's how long it's been. Like, those damage types were conceived in, like, 2012, 2013. Like, yeah. It's been about 8 or 9 years at this point. So it's been quite a while.
Gosh.
You know, they what?
No, just 3 or 4 times over. I'm just like, man.
3 or 4 times. It's so bad. Another question asked, has the reception of Stasis altered your plan for future Darkness classes? How has Stasis affected your future subclass plans? They say, we can't answer too much without getting shot. I can't leak anything, but I definitely think we've learned. When it's rough in PvP, we eat it. We took a big bowl of that shit, and we definitely learned from the experience. We weren't taking those Hunter Withering Blades to the face in trials and then just saying, yeah, we nailed it. We're going to certainly learn from this. Kevin Yanes is always in PvP.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your vision for how abilities will enhance gunplay? In PvP, there's definitely room for translation here. Post-Season 15, thinking about abilities and their cooldowns. An idea, something we are not doing, so do not take this out of context, but just for discussion, perhaps we would have a super long cooldown on a grenade, and it's a skill shot, but it one-shots you. Or we have a super short cooldown grenade, like 10 seconds, but it doesn't do a lot of damage. All it does is knock you back. Stuff like that, we can definitely build our strategies differently and design different things. I want to see stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
I think, for all its faults, how Stasis allows you to customize the subclass to your playstyle or to the activity you are doing is incredible. We haven't had a level of customization like that since Destiny 1, and I would argue this is far better than that.
Then the bubbles. God,
yes.
Remember the bubbles? Jeez.
The bubbles, however, I will say, for all their faults, the bubbles are insanely better than we have now. I cannot tell you how often I would like to run Blade Barrage, for example, but have weighted knife or exploding knife as my melee instead of the Fan of Knives. I've gotten used to using Fan of Knives because I run Blade Barrage in so many activities, but I'd like to be able to still run Blade Barrage and have that as my melee in PvP, for example, but maybe swap it out for something else in a raid, you know, or I'd like to be able to run my Celestial Nighthawk, but have some of the other traits of like top tree or middle tree. You know, there are just times there are times when I run Celestial Nighthawk, like the Fan of Knives would actually help me greatly in a dungeon or in a raid when I'm fighting supplicants, for example. I can take out 3 supplicants if I throw that the right way.
Right. My
knife, I have to get that precision hit. It's definitely more of a skill shot, which they're going to talk about, but that is a lot more difficult to do. They say, whenever we change ability cooldowns, we rarely don't change the efficiency of that ability. If we reduce one, we got to bring up another. And I think that's something really important to keep in mind. Like, they're not just willy-nilly nerfing things like you think that they are. Like, when something is made less powerful, something else has to get brought up. So they try to be really careful about that. Like, and I think going after the cooldowns is more critical for something like, for example, I think like Shield Bash is going to get touched on. Like that is actually kind of a high skill thing. Like we don't think of it because we get killed all the time, but for a Titan going up against a shotgun hunter, that's almost certain death.
Yeah.
If they're not already slowed. For like Warlock melees, you can chuck that sucker like 30, 40 yards.
Right.
you know, or like the grenades that just like suck, the vortex grenades and things like that. I think to the Warlock arc grenades all the time. I think to the area effect of Thunder Crash a lot. Like, those are ones that, like, I think you could probably reduce, like, the cooldown, or maybe, like, reduce the radius of the damage that, like, something like that does for PvP specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think we're at a point where we need to be buffing things in PvE. We need to be buffing supers to make much more things viable. Like, as a hunter, you know, I've gone over this. I can really only run Stasis or Celestial Nighthawk.
Right.
I can occasionally run Tether. in PvE content. But to do my maximum damage, I have to be running Celestial Nighthawk, Bottom Tree Night Stalker, or Stasis. And even Stasis, at that point, you better hope you have a bunch of other damage supers that are just going to burn it, because you're going to be there to be like freezing ads and things like that. Like, it's basically useless in a final raid boss or like Prophecy, for example.
Yeah.
Like, Silence and Squall isn't going to help me in there. I'm going to be popping it out there to kill ads in the room when you're trying to get the motes to dunk them. But something like Celestial Nighthawk, I can deal 300k to the boss right now. If I'm standing in a well, there's Divinity, I'm going to do closer to 500 probably. You know, Falling Star, we've seen how that, I mean, God, you know, John runs that in Atheon. It's just like you see the health go, boop.
Yeah, right.
Like, just giant chunk drops off, and, you know, Joe just got it the other day. Like, I'm excited to see 2 Thunder Yeets going, doop, doop. Like, I want to see that damage fall off. That's great, because the only other thing that's doing that much damage at one time, or even something remotely close to it, since they've nerfed Star Eaters already twice, is Celestial Nighthawk. And even that, I got to hit the precision, I got to get the precision shot, I got to have all these other things to even have a shot in hell at competing with that. Mm-hmm. It should not be that way. Likewise, that should not be the only DPS option against bosses for Titans.
Right.
You should not have to have one specific exotic to make it happen. That's a problem.
Yeah. I mean, I always feel like, even since Destiny 1, and I know they've gotten a lot better about this, but, like, it always felt like, you know, you had to, there's all these cool armor sets and all these cool, like, visual pieces, right? And I know Transmog's here or whatever, but, like, outside of that, it's like, I always felt like I had to have a specific set or a specific, you know, exotic to do when I went into a raid or Prison of Elders or something, where, like, okay, well, I have to wear the Helm of Saint 14 when I run Bubble, right? Like, you just have to. Like, I've always felt that way. And it's like, well, there's got to be a bunch of different options to achieve the same goal, you know? I've just always felt that way. So.
Yeah, I think that's part of the thing that, like, is kind of being brought up, is I shouldn't have to have a specific exotic to make something remotely viable. Like, for instance, like Thunder Crash it's usable in PvP, for example, but it was never viable in PvE. Mm-hmm. And it still isn't unless you get Falling Star. That should never be the case.
Yeah.
You know, like, Golden Gun is only viable in PvE because of Celestial Nighthawk. I've been using let me tell you something about Celestial Nighthawk. I aired this grievance last week. I've aired it on Twitter a few times. I've been using that same fucking exotic since I cleared Atheon for the first time in month 1 of Destiny 1.
Well, I've been using Helm of Saint 14 since
I'm for the same exact time.
Yeah. Since Atheon, they're like,
I'm fucking tired of running Celestial Nighthawk.
They're like, if you're running Bubble, you have to run Helm of Saint 14. I'm like,
okay. It was definitely much more critical in Destiny 1 to have Helm. Like, it's definitely not as critical anymore.
No,
and, like,
definitely not.
I do like that, you know, the sandbox is definitely evolving. Like, and in those raid encounters, like, yeah, there's always gonna, like, Bubble, like, Warlocks are, you always got a guy who's, that we joke that, you know, we have a well bitch and we have a divinity bitch. But that's freed up our Warlocks to be able to finally do something else. Like, we finally figured out a strategy on Atheon, like, because you get your super back so quickly, just put Nezarec Sin on, you're chucking like 3 Nova Bombs a damage phase if you're outside the portal when it starts. You can probably get 3 off if you're lucky.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Like, shards can do the same thing. I can get 2 Celestial Nighthawks off. I can get multiple shards off. Like, you can if you start out there, you can probably get 2 Yeets off. Mm-hmm. Like, if you have your, I think it's Intellect turned all the way up, you know. There's all these different strategies to do, and I like that. That's why I think I like Atheon so much, is that you have that. But moving on to, like, some of the other supers, they say, like, for example, If you could pick a target subclass that's your ideal balance, your target point for all subs, what is it? What subclass right now is exactly where you want it to be? And they say bottom tree Voidwalker or top tree Stormcaller. There's a version of this game where top tree Dawnblade is the bar, but I don't think that's where we want to be because it's way too hot. It's anime as fuck. It's fantasy driven, but it's not where we want every class. No surprise, no secret. It's too hot. They're pretty jazzed about where bottom tree Gunslinger is. Yeah. Where there's a version where that could be the bar, and like I agree. Like for all my bitching about Celestial Nighthawk, I do think like overall that is a really well-rounded class, especially with the right grenade. I run my Solar Hunter with trip mines, for example, because my swarm grenades just weren't doing anything, and you can't beat those trip mines. Even for ad control, boom, you can wipe out a whole group. Right there, one well-placed grenade. You don't even have to have Ankara's Spine on.
Yeah,
you can just chuck it in there. We see it in overrides. We see it, even with helping with killing champions. Oh my god, there are children screaming in my home.
I hear that. They're not my children.
No, they're not. For once, the children are on my end.
You got something you want to share with the audience there, Josh?
But I like this quote right here. Bottom tree Gunslinger's got its strengths, it's got its weaknesses, and it's got the power expression we look for. And I think that's fair. Like, it definitely does have its drawbacks. Mm-hmm. And in my case, it's having to get that precision with that damn knife. Mm-hmm. Like, it is not as easy for me to get those precision kills as it was in Destiny 1.
No.
Also, I'm really out of practice with it at this point. So I appreciate Arithmus's Embrace from a couple of seasons ago that lets me bounce weighted knife off 2 surfaces instead of just 1. I'm not any good with it in PvP, which is where people like to show off, but,
Sounds about
it's
right.
Cool. Let's see. When asked about builds that spam supers, I think it's cool you can build into more supers, making a build where you can get more supers, dedicating to that. Like, I'm the guy who brings the supers. I bring the orbs, but I'm not sure I like the passivity of them. Then one of them mentioned different sandboxes, and they said, we're not talking about separate sandboxes. There's a key thing in Destiny that your Guardian is your Guardian everywhere. Your Guardian is the same Guardian and it's the same power in all places. And I think that's really, really, really hard to do in a game where you have PvP.
Yeah.
It would be one thing if you let it run rampant if Gambit was your only instance of PvP, your only instance of fighting Guardians. Crucible, simply, you cannot do that, and I think it's really good that they're trying to do tweaks to both. Like, some things like Stasis we've seen are going to apply across the board, and then they're going to buff certain things in PvE.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's going to take a little bit longer, so maybe Stasis isn't your go-to in PvE for a little while. Every single class has an option that is not Stasis. I cannot tell you the last time I saw in a Nightfall somebody running a Stasis Titan or a Stasis Warlock if I'm not personal friends with them. In matchmaking, I have not seen either of those.
I don't run Stasis unless I have, unless it's one of the, burns or whatever, which I don't think it really is.
It's almost always a burn.
Yeah.
So, if I'm going to go, I'll see it in Vanguard Strikes, but I will never see it in Nightfalls. I haven't seen it in Dungeons, unless Joe's running it. I don't see Warlocks run it at all. And maybe that's just because that's, the specific play style that the people I play with have. Mm-hmm. But that's, a very important thing to note, I think, is that they feel like there are always going to be better options there. And I agree, Titan Shield, Thunder Crash, this season now. Nova Bomb is still very useful for clearing out groups and doing massive DPS. If you're going to do an offensive super and you're a Warlock, Chaos Reach, honestly, is almost always going to be, last season was Season of the Chaos Reach, with Focusing Lens. I'd like to see Focusing Lens become a permanent fixture of the mod pool, because I think that that's so helpful, or, have it come back periodically, every other season, like Oppressive Darkness does. Mm-hmm. Have those rotate in and out, so there's always one class that has that just uber power fantasy for PvE content, and it makes you get out of your comfort zone. I don't like running Void, but when Oppressive Darkness is up, boy, you better believe I'm running bottom tree Void in absolutely everything, because my grenades are killing champions.
Right.
I'm gonna run that.
Right.
Field design of super subclasses purposes. Here we go. We're talking about my Blade Barrage.
Here we go.
Rad. But it missed our mark for precision power fantasy that Gunslinger is known for. Chaos Reach has the anime feel, powerful top tree Dawn feel, but the splash on Chaos Reach is very big. I know at times we can feel like a black box, but the one thing we can say here is instill confidence is that we're playing with you. We're raiding. We're playing Grandmasters. We're getting destroyed by recovs and trials. We know it. We're here with you. I think that's, and again, like, that just goes back to, like, these aren't guys that they work 9 to 5 on a game and then they go home and just don't touch it. Like, I am always seeing the people I follow from Bungie are always tweeting about playing the game. They're asking, you know, how are things feeling? Like, for all the grief and shit that we give this studio, and Bungie does deserve a lot of it. Like, at the end of the day, these are people who are playing it. They're seeing it with us, but it's not as simple as flipping a switch overnight in a lot of instances. We see them get a lot of grief of, oh, they disable something fun right away. Like my Star Eater strikes. I was really upset I didn't have those for day one of Vault.
Yeah, and you were pretty upset. You're like,
I'm pretty upset because I'm still really rattled about that getting nerfed. But it's like, at the same time, okay, it's not as simple as we can deploy a fix before the raid comes out.
Yeah.
Like, it goes back to what we said about, what John and I said about Atheon last week. Like, everybody was discovering all these glitches. People were like, oh, Bungie didn't play us the raid enough. Like, you have a studio of like 400 people, like probably not all of whom are going to be allowed to play the raid before it comes out, playtesting something. It's going to be a whole lot different when you have it in the hands of 500,000 people.
Right.
That's always going to be your best playtest. Like, on day one, from like completions alone, it was like 2 years worth of playing in Vault, I think, on day one.
Yeah.
Like, with all the teams that were attempting, like, that's insane. In 24 hours, like, you did more than you could have ever hoped for in testing. Like, it would have taken you decades to reach that amount of testing.
Yeah.
And like, that's something we don't work in game dev. We don't understand how difficult something may or may not be. But again, like, you know, not to be the Bungie PR police, like, this is a good look. Have these conversations with us as a community.
Yeah, this is definitely something I wish they would do more.
Yeah, I don't want to dwell on all of these. If you guys want to see these, like, you can go find them on Reddit. There's a couple of really good write-ups. I'm going to hit on a few more points that I really like here. Movement and movement abilities. We believe movement is a little too far ahead in the dominance in PvP. We're definitely not going back to year one mobility, but there is a wide spectrum we could be on, and we definitely think we went too far on one end, and we can walk that back a pace or two. There has to be some mechanism to reining it in, because like with the Titan Slide and Melee, they rubber band because they move so fast.
Mm-hmm.
Do you consider Hunter the movement class? Would taking movement away from the Hunters be counterintuitive to your design goals? We're not talking about taking anything away. The only thing we do is make it a resource cost, like a cooldown. I think 6 seconds is a bit strong on Icarus, but that's another thing entirely. We tried to make the Hunter the movement class, and there are tons of prototypes you'll never see in playtests. We've tried to make that true. There's a lot of trial and error here and there. When asked about movement tools being less about skills and more about mistake correction, this is a chunk right here, specifically asked not to take this out of context. It's pretty okay if there's a build where there's a guy whose job is to get out of bad positioning. We don't want to say that's bad for movement. Movement can be used for that. Something like Night Stalker, I could see that. But we want there to be a cost to that. We don't want it to be the dominant playstyle. In other words, they don't want you to be able to run away from engagements all the time.
Right.
Is my takeaway here. So, like, Backrus with shotguns is still, like, just the most annoying fucking thing to play against in PvP.
Yeah.
Like, besides Stasis, that is one of the most annoying things, I think. It's just a Hunter using instead of dodging, they're teleporting, like, behind you and shooting you once, and you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that a lot in high-end PvP, in comp, in trials. Like, you see a lot of Backrus and slug shotties.
Right.
Not even slug shotties, just like rapid fires.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even think you need a slug for that.
No. Josh is singing song.
Hunters are in a situation where people love the capes and they love the fantasy. So people will always be hunters even if we make them subpar. We're not going to be clear. We definitely know people will always play hunter. In general, class representation of 33 is a design goal. But in reality, that's impossible. There's people who will run classes just for the feel and the fantasy, even if it's painfully suboptimal. Hi, hello, it's me, your resident Blade Barrage fan who likes to run Shards of Galanor because of how it makes his hunter look and the backstory he's invented for his character over the last decade. Like, I know that Blade Barrage is not optimal, even in PvP. I like running it, though, because I think Shards look so cool. I think that it's a really cool super. I enjoy playing that because I don't like having to get precision hits with my super. I think that's some bullshit, even though that's the whole point of hunters, is hand cannons and snipers. Mm-hmm. That was it from the beginning. I play with auto rifles, with pulses, and with sidearms. Like, I run up with a sword. I don't use snipers and hand cannons.
Maybe they're trying to tell you something, Josh.
I think they are. Sandbox regrets. I think this is a really good thing. I'm looking to see what all we have left. There's a few major points, but I want to touch on these. One of the higher regrets is the approach to D2 vanilla. People want more primary fights. We heard that even up to Rise of Iron. We want trials to be the goal of all PvP. Countdown was a response to that, where there's now a reason to fight people. There's some pain on the ranking system, attaching this pursuit, which is straight up power, to a really high skill requirement. Only 1,800 people got Registr's Claymore, for example. The rich get richer and then crush the poor who can't reach it. And then not paying attention to crowd control. We had a fantasy in our head where a counter to the unbridled aggression would be welcome, but we definitely overstepped our bounds. Drank the dark Kool-Aid. And they basically, talk about that with Stasis here too.
Right.
And then Sandbox triumphs, they say Adept Weapons is one. I definitely agree there. I think Adept Weapons have been a roaring success. Especially, it should not have taken this long to put them into Grandmasters.
Yeah.
It should have been a thing right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Having Nightfall weapons for us to pursue, Plug One, Swarm, Shadow Price.
I mean, it gives us a reason to run a Nightfall.
It gives me a reason to go run Nightfalls, but there's also a reason for me to go run Vanguard Strikes to get those Vanguard weapons.
Right.
I have never spent so much time in the Strikes playlist as I have the last season and a half, and that's because there's finally rewards worth getting in there. Before it was just I guess I'll go do it for a powerful, but I just got to the point where I don't even give a shit about the powerful. I won't hit the pinnacle cap. I don't care. I'm gonna go play Crucible with my friends, or I'm gonna do the seasonal activity, or I'm gonna go play some Gambit. I'm gonna go dungeons. I'm not gonna touch Strikes. I'm tired of playing the same Strikes after 4 years.
I know, dude. I'm tired of
That's how I feel about Inside Terminus right now. I'm so tired of this strike.
Dude, if I have to run Inverted Spire one more time, I'm not even kidding. I turned Destiny on.
Funny you say that. It's the Nightfall this week, and it's actually a great one to speed run through. You can get the Master done in about 15 minutes.
Dude, oh my gosh, dude.
It's great. I actually really like it. The first time I've wanted to see Inverted Spire in a very long time.
Every time I turn it on and go to the Strike playlist, just to get my Pinnacle for doing 3, I run it at least twice.
See, I haven't gotten it in the playlist in so long that it's nostalgia is coming back. And it's the Sarah McLachlan song is playing for me. Every time I'm God, I hate this fucking strike. And then then I see my completion time and it's the SPCA song, I Will Remember You, is playing in the background.
I will remember you.
Yeah, it's just oh my god, I love this again. Let's run it back, boys. Whereas I ran fucking Devil's Lair and Insight Terminus 50 times a piece last season, I think, for weapons. Oh, it was bad.
Wow.
And then they say there's a lot we missed with Stasis. We're really proud of how we added a 4th element. Concur. Agree. We weren't there for Arc Solar Void when they were forged for Destiny 1, so we're proud how we were able to add in this new element, the 4th character, to a cast that really stands up with the rest of Destiny. It doesn't feel like it was made by a different studio.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that. They tried to bait him on if Rift is coming back. We can't speak to that. We can only speak about Sandbox, sadly. I'm taking that as confirmation that Rift is coming back at some point. And then Dead Man's Tale is the other one. Dead Man's Tale is one of the last big things here to touch on. We worked so hard to get that gun right. We wanted it to have everything. We had an animator who worked hard to get the double reload right for Tex Machina guns, followed YouTube videos and everything. You watch closely, you'll see 2 bullets at once getting that double reload. Originally had a red dot sight, but we wanted to make it iron. Just everything is so good about that gun. Side note. We worked tirelessly, turned out exactly as we wanted it, but it's getting pulled back later this season. They're working on it now. There's going to be a Schwab on it. And I asked the animator how fast you could play this game, and he said 150, so we set it at that and then rolled it back to 120. So it wasn't even intended to be a 120 originally.
Mm-hmm.
It was intended to be a 150, on par with Jade Rabbit. If this thing fired like Jade fucking Rabbit, that thing's going to be a tank.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's going to hit, it's already a tank in PvP, but, I mean, you'd be one-shotting. It's already pretty much a sniper. Momentum control has just been so great. If you're playing it on Midtown this week, sit in the back with Dead Man. Just wait for people to run up. You're going to 2-shot them. 2 body shots kills them right now. If you have the Catalyst. It's fantastic. The Dead Man's nerf will not be input-specific PC console, but the way the nerf is structured, it will hopefully affect controllers less. Good. I think I speak for all of us when, like, all of us who are on here, you, me, Joe, Nerd Generalist, Johnny, we all like running Deadmans a lot.
Yeah.
It is probably my favorite new exotic of the expansion.
It's definitely it's definitely better than I anticipated, for sure.
Yeah, I expected it to be something, because when I initially got it, I was like, this is really cool, but I don't know if there's going to be a use for it. I have run that gun so many times, and a lot of that's because of anti-barrier scout rifle. That's been a big reason I've been able to run it the last 2 seasons. I expect my usage to drop off a bit outside of Crucible after this season. I'm already even moving away from it now, right? Because there's so many scout options again, and if that bump to scouts, which I'm getting to, is coming, that's going to be a big thing. Yeah. They talk about grenade launchers, special weapon balance, special weapons in regards to primary weapons. So this is where we're going to go. I think certain weapons are currently too easy to use. You don't have much counterplay. It's so easy to run a special ammo as a primary, and we're looking at that soon, but there's some things that need to be looked at. Pulse rifles and SMGs are where we want them. Autos are a bit low. 120 hand cannons are probably too hot, but we don't want to make 140s too dominant either. But most primaries are relatively well balanced with one another. So they'll remain. I don't think it's possible to buff sidearms without breaking something because they'll get really strong. So they'll remain in their niche like bows, and that's fine. We can't buff scouts too much because then everything becomes long range. But there is some wiggle room. TLDR, Bungie's happy with primaries right now, except for scouts and autos. Safest changes to bring special ammo weapons down. We're probably going to do that before we look at primaries. But hand cannons, scout rifles, and machine guns are getting tuned for PvE relatively soon. Thank God. Thank God. Because I ran a scout rifle exclusively in Destiny 1. Scout rifle, occasionally I'd run an auto rifle in my primary, and then I ran a lot of snipers as well. LDR is one that comes to mind that I ran a lot, at least in years like 1 and 2 before it got just utterly destroyed. I really, really, really liked that gun. I liked, sidearms, of course. Everybody liked that. Everybody liked Vestian Dynasty. But hearing that machine guns are going to be useful again, thank God. I know. Just thank God. I'm so excited for Season of the Thunderlord. And then the final 2 that we're going to talk about here. We're going to talk about, because this is the one that's rattling a lot of people right now. And I think most people in the community are behind this change. There's a very small group of PvPers and high-end PvEers who are very upset about this. And I fail to see why you're upset about this. But what are your thoughts on the quick swap glitch commonly used with double slugs? We were okay with it before because quick draw was a thing that had 100% uptime anyway. But now that we touch quick draw, we probably need to touch on this too. Did your quick draw nerf have its intended effect? Quick draw was the #1 perk option on basically every weapon. Now it's about half that to the top 3. Still good, but less, and that's our intended effect. The quick draw nerf went the way we wanted it to. Crit damage in PvE. What are your ideas on it? Why was it nerfed? How to bring some weapons back up? Precision damage nerf and Shadowkeep. We're not going to roll it back because the game is so different now. True. But we're going to look to mitigate that on certain weapons. No timeline on it, though. And they don't really talk about a whole lot of other stuff. That one is... That's the one with double slugs specifically is something, and like we've all kind of speculated on it throughout the day that it's probably a skill thing, because I know for a lot of people, like, it is far, far, far easier to do it on PC than it is on a controller. It is still possible to do on a controller, though. I want to make that really clear. It is still possible to do it on controller, but like I don't know who's really like. Unless you're like super duper sweaty, I don't know who's running that strat. And like, I get that it's there, but I think they're trying to like lessen that skill gap between like your Glads and your Dados and like me. Okay, right. Like I'm not God tier. I consider myself to be fairly decent at this game.
You're God tier to me,
PvE,
Josh.
And I'm so-so in PvP. I consider myself to be a pretty decent PvE player though. And I will never, ever reach the likes of that. Like, if I had PC, I'm probably not able to do the quick swap. On PC, maybe I can, but I don't like playing mouse keyboard. That's the whole thing. I've achieved it once on controller. but I was only able to keep it up for like 2 or 3 shots. Like I just was not able to do it past that. I don't know why. I understand why you need it. This is why you have quick draw auto loading. Mm-hmm. This is the whole purpose of it. Or auto loading Vorpal, really, now. I don't know why this is such a huge controversy, though. Like, I'm sure either. Somebody listening to this, if you understand why, please explain it to me. I get why high-end, like, super sweaty, like, the top 0.25% of the community are going to be upset about this, but I think the rest of us are just like, okay. Cool. That means that people have to make strategies for the rest of us to be able to use them. Like, I'm not too worried about it. There are some content creators and streamers who are just absolutely raging about it, though. And I'm like, guys, at the end of the day, it's a video game.
Right.
If you don't like it, there's the door. Please make your feedback constructive, not just fuck you, Bungie, fuck you for this. Like, no, there is a mature way to handle this, you know? At the end of the day. But the last thing is that Fixed Mythoclast is not living up to what they want it to do, so they want to change something soon. They say maybe sometime in Season 15. Good, because Fixed Mythoclast is really underwhelming right now. It's fine for something like Override, but I can't see myself using it literally anywhere else.
Yeah, not even in the raid at all, anywhere?
Oh, yeah, nowhere in the raid. Not a single goddamn place in the raid is there a place for that gun.
That kind of makes that. I mean, not about the raid, but just in general, that like a weapon that people were looking forward to having so much that like but you can't really use it anywhere. I mean,
well, so they touch on that and they say we didn't actually work. The sandbox lead didn't actually work on Vexmith though. I worked on Hawkmoon, so what I do know what it's like to bring back an old exotic and make sure it lives up to its legacy. Most people remember broken Mythoclast like at launch. Obviously, we couldn't bring that back. Mm-hmm. But we're aware of the community sentiment, and it's not performing like we want it to. So we expect something to be changed relatively soon, maybe sometime in Season 15. Again, I encourage you to go read a write-up, go watch the video. If you're really interested in like damage numbers, if not, I hope we gave a pretty decent overview of what this is and what the changes are. Before we jump into Corey, do you have any other changes while I'm looking at something here real fast?
Not really. I just hope they figure it out because like I'm an auto rifle guy, right? Like yeah.
Auto rifles feel great right now. Chroma Rush, baby.
Yeah, dude, Chroma Rush is like amazing. I'm also
I've ever liked the 720.
I'm also a scout rifle guy, and they just haven't really felt right. Even Hung Jury, I masterworked it and like, you know, had it have a decent roll on it. It just doesn't feel like it's hitting hard enough, you know.
I agree. I concur with that.
But I mean, I'm okay. I'm not as hardcore into perks, especially with PvE content, right? Mm-hmm. But I can definitely tell.
Corey definitely represents the more casual part of the fan base at times, which is good.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean,
look, you like to come, you like the story, you like to play with your friends, you like to raid. The end.
Yeah. But I mean, I've been trying to build a Titan 4 vault, like a resilient kind of fast, resilient Titan. Like I've been playing around with builds and looking up weapons that go with specific builds. Like I've been looking at that stuff recently. I just, I don't have a lot of time. So when I sit down, I'm trying to make it count, and sometimes it's not with Destiny, especially like the last week I've been playing Super Mario 3D World on Switch just because I've been laying in bed and just, but I'm really enjoying the last couple seasons. I feel like if I don't play Destiny, I'm missing out, right? Like I know they don't want you to feel like you're missing out, but the new seasonal structure and just some of the things that they're changing really makes you feel like you're missing out. So I want to be there, especially because of this show in particular. Like I want to be there. I want to be up to date. I want to be up to snuff. I want to make sure I sound like I know what I'm talking about, even if sometimes, maybe I don't. Sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
But that's why.
And that's to be fair. Getting into weapon builds and understanding different archetypes and things like that wasn't something I really grasped until recently. Mm-hmm. Until the last couple of seasons, I would say. So it's been refreshing.
Yeah.
and I'm really, really enjoying it in that regard. But Corey, we have a TWAB. The TWAB was literally just posted.
Yeah.
We're going to jump into this super quick. It's a really brief TWAB this week.
Great.
They already made it really clear it was going to be short. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the narrative of this season and what the narrative team is doing. But Iron Banner is back next week. They did patch it today to where when you turn in your bounties now, you do get all the weapons are now able to drop. The hand cannon, the shoddy, the LMG, and the sniper can all drop from the engram now. Whereas previously, I believe it was the LMG and the shotgun could not. So I'm excited to get new rolls on both of those. I did not get good rolls on either of those. They previously only dropped from the Iron Banner quest. So that's going to be cool. Of course, they're doing a new Destiny fashion show. First one with Transmog. They've got some really cool concepts up here. Take a look at those for some inspiration.
Yeah, I saw some pretty cool ones floating around. Some of them were pretty cool. Like I saw a Dr. Doom inspired one, which was really cool looking. Some of them aren't quite there. You're just like, oh, okay.
There's one account that has been posting a lot of them, that like doing the different Spider-Man suits.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I think there's been some really cool ones. I like the Miles Morales inspired Hunter. Really dig that. I think that's where I saw a Dr. Doom one there too.
Yeah.
An Iron Man, Spawn. Somebody did Spawn, and it looks really, really good.
Does it?
Yeah, it does. I actually think it looks really cool. I like it. They've added a photosensitivity notice for those of us with epilepsy, or those of you with epilepsy, not me personally, but us as Guardians as a community, that you'll see the pop up the next time you log into the game, and it's going to be permanently added as a notice in the end user agreement and on digital stores. Teleporting enemies update. As mentioned in previous TWAB, we've been noticing more teleporting enemies since the launch of Beyond Light. Thank you. So have the rest of us, and it's been really annoying, specifically in Presage. This past Tuesday, we tweaked the outgoing bandwidth limits that our servers use in order to provide more capacity for us to network data about what the AI are doing to players. We believe this will reduce significant source of AI teleporting across the game. Certain activities will still have some teleportation issues that will not be affected by this change. So it's pretty clear this is a pretty wide-ranging thing, and I would not expect a fix for this until maybe next season or beyond. I would expect probably it'll be packaged in with Witch Queen, in all frankness. They made it pretty clear last week they had to divert a significant amount of resources to come and do the Stasis nerfs. And they say, when we plan something for one season, we have to bump it up so drastically that requires a considerable strain. So don't expect big patches like this every season in the middle of the season. But we've now had a couple seasons in a row where we've had major changes in the middle of a season. Yeah. Whether it's unsunsetting certain weapons, announcing that sunsetting is going away, and we're automatically throwing weapons back into the loot pool, with Chosen and things like that. Like there are changes afoot in the middle of seasons, but they're basically saying expect them to be smaller. Like we're reining in Deadmans or something along those lines.
Yeah.
There's a big PC performance update here. It's a lot. They basically just go into, we launched it. It wasn't as optimized as we wanted to, blah, blah, blah. We make optimizations that seem effective based on our internal tests. We don't know if they'll be helpful more widely until we receive feedbacks from the labs at partners such as AMD or from you when you buy the game. Today, the game's performance is close to what it was before Beyond Light for some PC configurations. Because of the difficulty in predicting how much each change will improve performance, we've been reluctant to promise a fix, even though we are making regular optimizations. We're aware of these problems, continuing to work on them, optimistic about the future. I imagine that this has a lot to do with you are working from home. Yeah. Frankly. That's just what it comes down to. I'm not saying I'm giving everybody a free pass. This is an issue that has now been ongoing for about 8 months. 7 or 8 months. This needs to be addressed. It does. And I'm glad that they are addressing it in increments. I also understand the reluctance to promise a fix, though. Expunge. If you did it last week, you noticed you did not get a pinnacle. The weekly challenge will be added on June 15th, which will start giving the pinnacle rewards. Until then, you will receive one high-statted piece of armor for your first completion each week, I believe. Of course, there was the hot fix and everything else that happened. Go read those notes on your own. And then weekly known issues. This is one that hit me, and I didn't know this was a thing until it happened to me. Gravity cannons can kill players and expunge when you walk up to them from behind. It was actually a really funny death out of nowhere. It made me laugh quite a bit.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
Yeah. There is one thing here at the bottom, though. And it says, it's a note from Damage. He says, outside of seasonal content, there's a lot to get excited about for the future of Destiny. A few of us have said our best days are ahead. With every playtest, shot of gear, or piece of concept art that passes by my desk, I can't help but agree. And then he provides the first in-game image from the Witch Queen.
Ooh.
It looks like it might be a Titan. I'm not sure. I would have to go back and look at the armor concepts again, but I do believe that is a Titan.
I can tell you, Josh. Hold on.
I believe it's a Titan. And that armor looks drastically better in-game than it did on the concept art. I will say that
where,
right now.
Where are you seeing this?
Very bottom of the TWAB. Very bottom of the TWAB.
Very bottom. Ooh.
Yeah. Now,
I don't know. That could be a hunter. Look at that hood.
Is that the EDZ, or is that a new planet?
I think that's the EDZ.
I think it's EDZ too, but it looks really good.
It does.
This was a quick tease. We're eager to show you more about the Witch Queen. Expect to hear from us again with more details later in the summer. We have awesome content to play between now and then. See you out there in the wild. This lines up with what you and I have been saying, Corey, that we don't think we'll see it before the end of August.
Yeah.
I think they want to lessen that window, especially after last year when they revealed it in June like they traditionally do. They announced Witch Queen and Lightfall, and then they had to delay it a month later. Mm-hmm. They had to delay it for 2 months, and I don't think they want to have that happen again. And also, they've made, like last year, we got the reveal of it during the downtime before Season of Arrivals dropped. We didn't even know it was called Season of Arrivals at that point.
Yeah.
I imagine they're probably going to keep that next season under wraps until the end of season event. And that may be when we get it, because August 24th lines up almost exactly with the Gamescom dates this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see that being the thing. I could see them trying to do that, because Destiny historically has a presence at Gamescom. And it would not be outside the realm of possibility for them to do it. Yeah, so the season ends on the 24th of August,
mm-hmm.
and Gamescom starts on the 25th.
Yeah.
So I would expect to see, us get the season details, and then boom, that week, like on Thursday or something, we're gonna drop Witch Queen stuff on you.
Gosh. That'd be awesome.
Dude, I'm so ready. I'm so ready for this.
I'm so ready. I'm like I'm enjoying this.
I am too. I really, really like the narrative this season.
Yeah,
have you played this week's story mission yet?
I haven't played it yet. I have some.
Have you seen the cutscene?
Yeah, I watched it earlier today, but I couldn't really hear anything because our computer sound at work sucks. But yeah, I hit me with it, Josh. Hit me with the.
So the cutscene that we get this week, it's one of the first times I can really remember a cutscene being narrated by somebody other than one of the Vanguard.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those sketched out cutscenes, which I'm so glad they're doing these more and more.
That's the Saint 14 helmet
mm-hmm.
with the skull in it is really cool.
Oh, dude, they're begging for that to be an ornament.
Yeah, if it's not an ornament, I'm gonna be really upset.
This cutscene though is told specifically from the perspective of Mithrax and the Fallen.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, at the end of the mission this week, you are summoned to the Elixni Quarter because there's been vandalism. People have snuck in, destroyed the ether tanks, and we're going to read Under the Endless Night. We're going to read that for this week, so we can put that into context. But ether tanks have been destroyed, food supplies have been stolen or poisoned, and Mithrax is rightfully outraged. And he's basically blaming Lakshmi for it, because Lakshmi has been, if you're not listening to the broadcasts inside the helm, you need to be doing it. It's like last seasons with Saladin and the others while you were going on the offensive against the Cabal. They really do add to the story. She's basically spewing propaganda against the Fallen. She's playing in a game, and as we discussed last week, it really sounds like she's trying to instigate a coup against Zavala and Ikora as well.
Mm-hmm.
Her and New Monarchy are aligned. Dead Orbit is kind of like, fuck y'all, I don't want any part of this. But at the same time, if y'all happen to get control, I would join you in a new Vanguard, but I'm not supporting this right now. We're still planning to leave regardless of who wins.
Right.
Which has been Dead Orbit's goal all along, and now with the appearance of the pyramids, blah blah blah, they really want to do it now. They really want to get the fuck out of here. It's long been theorized in parts of the lore community that when we eventually have to evacuate the city, that the city will eventually be destroyed. Dead Orbit is what will save everybody. Because that's why they exist, is to ensure humanity survives.
Right.
And some of us have thought that, especially with the future that Elsie has told us about, this may be coming sooner rather than later. Like as soon as the Witch Queen.
Right.
But this story, so you're summoned to the quarter, and Saint is there. Saint is the liaison between the Vanguard and them. And Saint and Lakshmi are both there. And after Lakshmi goes away, him and Mithrax kind of get into a shouting match. And Saint is like, you're asking us to live us alongside our enemies, alongside monsters who have terrorized us, for generations, blah, 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 blah. And Mithrax tells him, basically, you want to know what living by a monster really means? And then he tells the story, the legend of Saint 14 within the Fallen race, within the Elixni. And he is literally known as a demon.
Yeah. The
demon who calls himself Saint.
Yeah.
And it's a 2-minute cutscene, and it's genuinely one of the most moving things I think they've ever put into the game. Like, there's lore pieces that are moving. I mean, Survivor's Epitaph, if that doesn't make you, get a little emotional, I don't know what to tell you. This, though, outside of Cade's death, may be one of the most moving, if not the most moving cutscene we've ever gotten.
Yeah.
This is... I don't want to say it's difficult to watch, but when you really think about this, like what we know about Saint 14 and really what's been established the last couple of seasons now, like how he feels about these other races, this feels like a genuine turning point. Because right now, Lakshmi her and New Monarchy they're wanting Saint to be the new leader once they oust Zavala and Ikora. And we don't really get anything else after that cutscene. That's kind of it for the week. Thrax just basically says, he talks to you through the servitor one more time when you go back to the helm, and he basically says, all right, all the cards are out on the table. I hope Saint heard me, and I hope he understands and believes me. I don't know if he does, and I don't know if you do either. But basically, we have to work side by side to beat this threat.
Yeah.
And I think that this is going to be a major turning point for Saint, but this is not just a turning point for Saint. We've said this so many times since Beyond Light came out. This is a turning point for the story. Right. And whoever is in charge of this narrative team now, whoever is on this narrative team, bravo.
I saw somebody tweeted it out, but it said the story got infinitely better when they took your Guardian out of it. And I
definitely agree.
Yeah, I forget where I saw that. I wish I could give credit to
our Guardian talking, and I still wish that our Guardian talked. I will be 100% clear on that. I do wish our Guardian talked, and in terms of like recasting, I really think that like Shax and our Guardian are the next two that are going to be recast, and they're really the only other two that need to be, in my opinion. Yeah. It's criminal that our Guardian is not speaking and reacting alongside of these revelations. Yeah. I'm glad that Ghost is not. Yeah. I got tired of hearing from Nolan North. I do wish they would do a little bit more with Ghost, rather than like, oh, he's a buddy that fits in your backpack and he only talks during the expansion now. But it is really relieving that the exposition is coming from other NPCs and not just from Ghost explaining it to us, because I'm more invested. I actually want to pay attention and not just go back and like read transcripts after. Yeah. Like, I actually want to pay attention. I'm engaged. Like, seeing the NPCs on, like, little hologram tables, like in Season of the Chosen or in the hangar now, adds to it. Like, we don't need full mocap, just something like that. Like, we're interfacing with them. We're not just listening to an audio log or something. Like, they're actually talking to us. Like, it actually kind of pans over and zooms in like it's a mini cutscene. Yeah. Doing things like that. Like, you have to go talk to Ikora during this week's quest. Instead of going back to the helm like you normally do, you go to Ikora and she sends you to the Elixni Quarter. Things like that, like, yeah, I know we all complain, oh, I gotta go to the tower. Like, tower load time isn't that anymore. Go there, fucking talk to Ikora, she misses us. And then get on with your life. Like, the storytelling that is going on is just, this is what we imagined Destiny could have been. All through Destiny 1. We had glimpses of it in D2. We had glimpses of it in the Red War. We had glimpses of it in Forsaken, I would say, is when they really stepped it up. We had glimpses in Warmind, of course. Forsaken was great, but I mean, there really wasn't a story to Black Armory, to Joker's Wild, to Opulence. Like, you had to read the lore still.
Mm-hmm.
Get all that storyline. I mean, even Black Armory, like, we're still trying to, like, kind of tie that in a lot of ways, outside of, like, oh, Spider's brother is there.
Yeah.
Like, cool. Unless you read the lore, you had no idea who this fucker was. He
right.
was just a pain in the ass when you're trying to get Izanagi's Burden, and then when you're trying to do Scourge the Past. Like, Joker's Wild, like, unless you're reading the lore and, like, even doing, like, do all the Trials of the Nine quests or whatever they were called, like, Missions of the Nine for whatever reason Zur had them. They revealed a little bit of Joker's backstory as well, you know, in that, or not Joker, God, Drifter. Been seeing too many Mass Effect movies too. You know,
same character though,
that.
Right?
Opulence really didn't have too much of a storyline. Like, okay, we had Savathun kind of dicking around, but that was it. Shadowkeep, okay, there wasn't really a huge story to Shadowkeep either, personally.
Shadowkeep's story was like almost non-existent. It felt like
it was really something they had to like throw out there to like bridge the gap. It feels like something that almost could have been just made a seasonal thing.
Yeah, it almost felt like when Destiny 2 got delayed and they put together Rise of Iron real fast, but like I still feel like Rise of Iron was a better storyline than that.
It was, and that's largely because it was self-contained.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, it was the last thing of Destiny 1. Like, Shadowkeep was just kind of a weird period. That was right after they split from Activision. Like, that would have almost certainly been the Rise of Iron to Destiny 2.
Yeah.
But, you know, then you got Beyond Light, which, you know, way better narrative. Of course, you know, Season of Dawn had great storytelling. Season of Arrivals. Hunt wasn't great on gameplay, but in terms of the storyline with the Crow, with the Hawkmoon quests.
Yeah, the story was definitely better.
Even the High Celibate story is like, oh, this is Xivu Arath's, like, war chief that you're hunting. Like, this is really cool. Like, you're chasing him in and out of the Ascendant plane.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you and Crow are hunting him on opposite sides. That's a really cool, like, story and gameplay mechanic, I think. And then you get where we got with Chosen and where we are with Splicer, and it's just on another level entirely. This is the consistency we talked about after we liked the story in Dawn, but we all got tired of the Sundial.
Mm-hmm.
We liked the story in Arrivals and the banter and stuff, and we're like, shit, can we get a whole season of this? Just not like a 5-month season.
Right.
And I feel like we're finally getting that now with Chosen and with Splicer. Like, they get most of the story out of the way in the first 7 weeks or so. So you have the back half. You played all those. Cool. You got to come back finish your weekly challenges up, and kind of pitter patter around, do whatever you want. Come back for the end of season event, and that's it.
Yep.
But there's still catch up time. And if you didn't play the season, you can catch up on it next season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's all there. But this goes back to the biggest shame of Destiny is that all these story missions will eventually go away.
Yeah.
And I think now we're not only at a point where we need a theater mode.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We need a way to access these conversations and these missions in game. Like, we need to be Bungie. I'm pleading with you. I know that you wanted to reduce the file size of the game. If people want to have Destiny as like their Call of Duty on their system, let them download everything. Let me download the strikes that are missing. You can have your curated list of, hey, these are the ones attached to the main game, so this is going to be, you know, our thing. Mm-hmm. And you can rotate those out for all I care.
Well, if you think about it right now, right, even if you look at the Game Pass stuff, right, like you can download just the base game of Destiny and just Beyond Light already. So they kind of already have that system implemented. So why can't we do it with the rest of the game, you know?
Yeah, I really...
I mean, I know it's a lot harder than, like, that,
yeah,
but...
of course, we're spitballing here.
File save as.
The problem... I think the problem that we ultimately have is you have these cutscenes like this one, like the Zavala the attempted assassination on Zavala, both of them last season,
mm-hmm.
that will be forever lost if we don't have a way to replay these quest lines. Like, if the helm is going to be here permanently, let me have those. Let me go pick those quest lines up. If I miss them past this year, let me go pick them up from the quest kiosk. But just warn me, like, hey, by the way,
or like have it be a kiosk in Zavala's office. There's no reason to go down there, but it's there, right? Like, why can't we just go there? You know,
let me like access the cinematics from the quest kiosk or something. But let me go pick up these quest lines and just give me a warning. Like, if I pick one of those for like a previous season, like, hey, by the way, we need to install some extra stuff in your game, it's going to be like 3 gigs.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you most people would be okay with that if they haven't played that content. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, I don't know. Again, I'm spitballing here. Like, I know we can't have, like, Wrathborn hunts forever in the game. But if these weapons are really going to stick around forever, you're going to have to wait to get them. You're going to have a way to get them past this season. Like, those just going to be added to the world loot pool. Like, that's going to eventually get too bloated again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Umbrals, I mean, you can keep doing it, but, like, and I'm sure that is the system going forward. I think they will eventually replace just regular old legendary Ingrams that you get. I think those will eventually replace it. Let you get your own loot as the loot pool continues to grow and it's not being sunset.
Right.
We're already seeing that, you know, with the armor sets. We're seeing, you know, the gunsmith is selling guns again. Had a pretty great roll last week on a scout rifle.
The 7th Seraph shotgun is available with Warple right now.
Yeah, so I mean, CQC is a great shotty, especially with the nerf to Fellwinners. It's a top 2 or 3 shotgun for PvP right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's been some really, really, really solid rolls in there. Like, some of them are complete duds, but the ones that are duds are ones that have largely been around for a while. I mean, like the scout that was there last week, and I think it's the sidearm this week, or it was the week before, or something like the future war cult stuff. Like, those are in the Engrams for this season. Mm-hmm. But you could still buy them from there, and I like that. I like that it's not a curated role, but it is I guess it is in a way. It's a curated role from Bungie that you're going and buying. Mm-hmm. Like, it's something they assign to it, and like, it's not going to be the pinnacle, but it's not going to be the worst either. It's going to be somewhere in between.
Right.
Or it's going to have like one really good perk and one that kind of like balances, that kind of knocks it off, because it's for you to get a taste of that weapon. And hey, maybe I want to go focus my Umbrals to give me this.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I want to go spend them all on future war cult Engrams so that I can get these weapons. Like, that's a really good idea, I think, and I think that's how you eventually bring back New Monarchy and Dead Orbit weapons as well.
Yeah.
Is by doing that. Like, I think that's a great solution. Like, though, for Hung Jury is a Dead Orbit weapon, for example, and that's Nightfall. That's one of the Nightfall weapons this season.
So good.
That's really cool. Like, last season was a bunch of Vanguard weapons. Plug 1 is back this season. It's a Vanguard weapon. And I think that helps tie into the narrative as well. But if we're going to do this, and we're going to keep having these awesome stories, like Chosen and Splicer are some of the best storytelling Destiny's ever done.
Yeah.
And I have a reason to log in every week now. I mean, I can go a couple weeks without logging in and still come back and do it all. That's not a problem. But it's the fact that I want to log in on reset day, run and do that quest right away. I want to know what's happening. It only takes an hour of my time. And I've seen that as a critique, like, oh, it's just an hour of story every week. Like, yeah, don't you assholes ever watch TV? Mm-hmm. Like, do you not watch? Are you one of the guys who's like, ugh, I don't like Mando because it's made by Disney Star Wars? Like, I'm sorry, the rest of us are like queuing and breaking Disney Plus at 3:00 in the morning to watch this so we don't get spoiled. I feel the same way about Destiny right now. As I can't touch anything. I can't look at my mentions. I can't look at Twitter, at Reddit, nothing until I finish this quest. I can't do it because otherwise I would have been spoiled on the Saint stuff, for example. As said, they're generous, and I ran it like 10 minutes after reset.
Yeah.
So, kudos to the narrative team. Like, we're going to talk a lot about you guys going forward. Like, especially if the coup and like the Civil War thing actually happens, which I have no idea if it does, but if it does happen,
I mean, we've kind of been talking about that for a while, right? Where like, I mean, since Arrivals, where like there might be a rift between Ikora and Zavala, right? Like, we've been talking about that, like. Maybe not in this way, but we've definitely brought it up and say, hey, maybe Zavala goes one way and Ikora goes another, right? And
well, now it's feeling like it's going to be Zavala and Ikora are going to go one way and the rest of the tower wants to go another, or at least parts of them. Like, we know Saladin is in Zavala's corner. He's Team Zavala. Yeah. I imagine Shaxx is Team Zavala unless he's keeping something from us. Mm-hmm. Hawthorne, of course, Team Zavala. Drifter, Team whoever gets to be paid.
Yeah.
You know, he's Team Darkness Vanguard right now. He's got a place to bug out to if he needs to. Yeah. But it really feels like it's the factions against the Vanguard at this point. And we can kind of infer from the lore that Osiris we've deduced is between the Endless Night book and between the lore on the Vanguard grenade launcher this season. I'm completely blanking on the name of the gun, but Osiris is fucking around in the tower right now, and we don't know what the purpose is, but he's clearly got an investment in this upcoming like coup attempt.
Yeah.
He's trying to keep Saladin separate from Zavala with some bull crap. You can pretty much infer he's the one that's interfering on behalf of the future war cult, and like he's going to try to sway Saint to their side. That is a schism I do not want to see the result of. Right. Off screen. Yeah. I want it that shit needs to be on screen. It needs to be in a cutscene if Saint and Osiris get into an argument and like end their friendship. That has to be on screen. That cannot be something done in the lore.
Right.
We cannot have another Sagira situation here. Which I mean, I have my own personal theories about Osiris, and I have my own theories about Osiris and Sagira.
You do? Wait, what? I need to know now.
I don't think that it's actually Osiris in the tower.
You don't?
No, I think it's somebody that spends. I think it's a copy or something, because I just keep thinking back to the lore we got before Beyond Light, where he encountered a pyramid ship on the edge of the system, and there were two instances. It was him, and then there was one about Anna. Anna fled.
Right.
Anna fled from him. Osiris did not. Osiris went and investigated and left Sagira on the ship, and she notes when he came back, he was different.
Mm-hmm.
And then we know, he was chasing the signals, to the Dreadnought, these other planets, and he eventually went to the moon. Burst of light, Sagira dies. So I think Sagira is probably still dead, but I don't know if the real Osiris is dead. And now, if they pull this fake out, this is something they can only do one time, right? You can't get away with doing this ever again. And it's kind of a cheap thing to do, but it would cause everybody to question their alliances. I mean, we're dealing with the god of trickery here, the hive god of trickery and deception.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if that has something to do with it, if that plays into it. Also, if you play this week's story quest, I promise we're about to get the lore corner, everybody. I know we're running a little long, but
we've had longer.
If you play the story mission this week, Lakshmi will tell you that people are singing, that the people in the city are starting to sing, and the tune to the words that they're singing is Savathun's song.
Oh God.
Yep. It's building. It's here, man. I'm really scared for what that epilogue now means at the end of the season.
Right. Oh God.
I'm really scared because they've shown a willingness to do things we don't expect in the middle of a season now.
Right.
And that kind of terrifies me, not just for the city, but for like some of our favorite NPCs. Osiris, Saint, Mithrax, Shax. I'm kind of scared for all of you right now.
Yeah.
Not you, Lakshmi. Fuck you.
Yeah. You can burn in hell.
You can definitely burn in hell. Let me pull up the ones that we were going to read. We're gonna do 3 lore pieces tonight.
Sweet.
I gotta find the one from the one that we need for nope, that's not it. I'm trying to read from there we go. Found the book. All right. So the first one we're going to read is from Beneath the Endless Night. It's our weekly installment. Sabotage. 24 humans, their faces mostly covered with makeshift masks, slunk into the Batsa district under cover of darkness. Some were armed with weapons, though most carried workday tools like crowbars and wrenches. They planned to infiltrate the Elixni quarter and find evidence of aggression. If that failed, they would send a clear message that the House of Light was unwelcome in the city. Knives tore into banners, noxious fumes filled the air, paint cans rattled. The hum of the machinery around them disguised the sounds of their labor while hushed voice conferred in terse, conspiratorial tones. "I think this is their food," a young woman whispered to her male companion while warily looking over her shoulder. She didn't see anybody as they crouched by a large ether tank, but she imagined the Elixni crowded together in a nearby building. Did they even sleep? "Here, give me a hand with this," her companion said, pointed to what he guessed was a control panel. Together they pried the faceplate off, revealing a mess of wiring beneath, not whirring. They shared a furtive glance and began pulling out the wires by the fistful, hands shaky, blood pounding in their ears. A low whistle like a bird call fluttered through the night air. When they looked up, a hunter stood over them only a few paces away, his face shadowed by a cowl. He held his hand cannon at hip level, aimed straight at them. Their co-conspirators, drawn by the sound, gathered in their periphery, mentally calculating their chances. Not a single one liked the odds. Even those who came armed expected to fight the Fallen, not a Guardian. The hunter called out in a half-whisper, "I don't want any trouble." The woman stood frozen as the young man beside her moved towards the hunter, his jaw set. "No," his companion hissed. "Are you crazy?" She grabbed his arm to haul him behind the ruined ether tank, but he wrenched free. The young man stepped slowly towards the hunter. "You're on the wrong side of this thing," he started. The hunter pulled back on his hand cannon's hammer with an audible click. "I don't think I am," he replied. Unwilling to test the hunter's mettle, the young man called over his shoulder, "Let's go." The hunter narrowed his eyes. He watched as the young man slinked past him and spat at his feet. Something old and terrible rose up inside the hunter. It took all of his focus to steady his hand. The conspirators peeled away from their hiding places one by one, disappearing into the dark. Some hissed choice insults and disparations at the hunter under their breath, though none dared to look at him. In just a few minutes, the block was deserted except for the hunter, who stood alone in the street until his ghost compiled over his shoulder. It chirped with concern. You wouldn't really have shot them, right?" The hunter hesitated as he holstered his weapon. "They needed to know I was serious, Glint." "But you weren't," his ghost insisted. Wordlessly, the hunter began making his way through the destruction. Someone would sound the alarm soon, and he didn't want to be here when they did. "Tell me you weren't serious," his ghost said again, lagging behind. "Were you?" So Crow is watching out for the Elixni. He previously asked Zavala to be the envoy, and Zavala said no, that he didn't want the city knowing about him until the time was right.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, the only people who really know about him are Zavala, Ikora, and Osiris.
Yeah.
So that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, what if somebody finds out before they, like, especially because like that's going to cause a big.
I mean, I guarantee you by the end of the season, people are going to know who Crow is.
Right, but I mean, like we're talking about how there might be a split in the tower if the wrong person finds out who Crow is, right? And they know, and then they find out that Zavala and Ikora know, and hiding it from them. That's going to cause a huge stir, especially if it's someone like Saladin, right?
Yes and no. I think that Saladin would understand. I ironically think like Amanda would actually probably take it the hardest because her and Cade were very close.
Yeah.
But I am curious to see. However, I think her and Hawthorne didn't really know Uldren, but she knows of him. Yeah. I think Hawthorne may actually take it a little bit hard too. Eris almost certainly would.
Yeah.
Kind of curious to see what happens, though. I mean, it's pretty clear at this point that Crow is going to be the Hunter Vanguard.
Yeah, it's pretty clear.
Witchwind gets here. And good, because he's secretly the best written character in the game right now.
Yeah.
It's like not even a secret anymore.
Yeah, I was like, it's not even a secret.
It's not even a secret.
I was going to say, it's not even a secret. It's like pretty obvious, actually.
All right. The next one that we are going to read, I had to decide which one I was going to do. Yeah, we're going to do Sojourner's Truth first. Speaking of Crow, this is going to kind of go back to what we talked about. I think we read this one last week before we read about the coup. Crow has been secretly stealing supplies from Spider, like riches, and sending them to Mithrax in Spider's name, though.
Ooh. And
Saint and Amanda kind of know he's doing it because he always draws a crow. He always draws a bird on the manifest list. So they know it's not really coming from Spider, and the Elixni like kind of know that too.
Yeah.
This one's for Sojourner's Tale. Home is just over the horizon. The pipes are silent. Ether production is paused during batch loading, and in that interstitial time, Spider's lair feels like a tomb. Every creak and groan of his throne becomes excruciatingly pronounced. Spider reclines against one arm, rolling a dead ghost shell in one hand, scraping a clawed finger across its gray, lifeless eye. The arrival of a trusted associate pulls Spider from his thoughts. Avrok, Spider bellows, turning his attention to the armored Elixni striding through the doorway. What did you find? Avrok approaches the throne, wriggling his hands together anxiously. Our thief, my lord. Spider leans forward with the groan of the cable suspending his throne. And what did you do to them? He asked in greedy anticipation. That, however, is where Avrok falters. I did not catch them, my lord. Avrok humbly answers, his much smaller frame eclipsed in Spider's shadow. But I have a name. Out with it, Spider grouses, falling back against his throne with deflated interest. The Crow. Spider's blood turns to fire. His grip tightens on the dead ghost so hard its shell cracks. Spider continues squeezing until the glass eye completely pops. Then he takes a moment to compose himself. Our little bird come home to the nest so soon. Tell me everything. He was able to infiltrate the storehouse, Avrok explains, and coerced a team of laborers to offload cargo promised to the Empress onto a skiff, which he then stole, along with a cache of your more personal belongings, among which was the quantum opal. Avrok shrinks lower, lower, lower. The supplies were delivered to Mithrax in your name as a gift. And the workers, Spider growled, they're gone? Avrok doesn't mean to make it sound like a question and regrets taking the tone immediately. To where exactly? Avrok takes a small step back from Spider's throne. Left? He clenches his jaws. With the Crow? Spider slowly leans forward again. For Earth, Avrok concludes. The ether pipes begin to hum and rattle as a new batch begins production elsewhere in the complex. The noises rise in intensity, turning the familiar hissing wail that joins with the uncomfortable sound of Spider laughing. The Baron of the shore throws his dead ghost at Avrok, who ducks away from it, covering his head with his hands. He's taking them to Mithrax, Spider says, between fitful chuckles and wheezing coughs. He steals from me and gives it to the House of Light. Unbelievable. Though behind the laughter and coughs, there's a hint of appreciation in his tone. The kid's grown a spine. There is, Avrok starts, offering Spider a folded piece of paper. One more thing. He left this behind. Spider's seal was scribbled on one side. For you. As Spider unfolds the note, Avrok creeps further away from the throne. Inside, nothing more than a crude drawing and a rude missive. That little The pipes are howling. This is like secretly really great. I really, really, really like this. It shows Spider's completely aware of what Crow is doing, and I almost wonder if he'll have a role to play in this.
Yeah.
But I also want to know, who is the Empress that they're talking about? Is that Keitel? Or is it somebody else that we don't know about yet?
Is there like a...
There's nobody left in the fall.
I mean, yeah.
There's literally nobody left unless they start inventing more people.
I mean, they could, I guess, like bring in a fallen... I don't know.
Aramis would have been the closest.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of us are of the opinion Aramis is not actually dead.
No, dude, you left her frozen at the top of the... I don't know. Could be Keitel. Maybe
it could be Keitel. I'm a little curious to know.
Maybe Spider
Avrok
made
is somebody
a deal.
Who keeps popping up in the lore since Beyond Light. I'm kind of curious to see if Avrok, because Spider is almost certainly going to be a boss at some point.
Yeah, like in a raid, you think? Or like a dungeon?
I think it'll be more of a dungeon. I think we're going to have to kill Spider at some point.
Yeah. A dungeon would be cool, like on the Tangled Shore where maybe he you know how Mithrax is super into or that the whole house is into the tech and stuff and experimenting with tech. What if Spider does and it's in the wrong hands, or maybe he finds, I don't know, maybe he goes to Europa and takes what's left of Tanix's stuff or something. I don't know. There's some things I feel like you could do that are interesting. Maybe not, in the way of the story going that direction or whatever. But I think if you want to make Spider a boss, you could definitely see him he sees all these Fallen doing, experimenting with tech. Maybe he tries and he fails and he becomes some sort of weird mutant tech Fallen. Maybe his chair just floats around and you have to shoot him like Robotnik style and Sonic. Maybe he just kind of flies around. But you know what I mean? Like
I would imagine that Spider has to be a boss at some point.
Yeah. Maybe
he make him like operate Tanix style,
or maybe like Tanix survives and he saves Tanix.
Oh God, not again!
No, I'm serious.
No.
Like, what if he goes to Europa?
I know, not again. No, Tanix can't. I literally have his head in my little igloo hut.
That doesn't. No, it's a robot head. It's a fake head.
He's dead. Tanix is dead. You can quit bringing Tanix back. It's not fun anymore. It's not fun. It's not creative. Get better. You're better than this, and you know it, Bungie.
Maybe Tanix has a daughter, and that's the Empress.
Fuck you. So our last one is going to be ignition code. I can't decode anything. I can decode anything with a grenade launcher. Saint 14. Ahura hauled a metal crate from the dropship towards the haphazard Elixni settlement. He moved slowly, matching the pace of his malnourished workmates. Though he had fasted during his trip, Ahura knew that his solid frame still made him a standout. He feared it would reveal him as the imposter and infiltrator he was, even while dressed as a House Salvation deserter. During the trip to Earth, Ahura had been overawed. The last city looked like the perfect ripple of light from above, dropped from the impassive form of the great machine. Ahura wondered for the first time in his life if Spider was wrong about the Guardians. But his misgivings evaporated as soon as he emerged from the dropship. Rather than living in gleaming city of crystal, the Elixni were packed into the bombed-out ruins of a war zone. The area they'd been given appeared to be on the verge of collapse. Ahura sneered inwardly. Did the Guardians really believe the Elixni could be pacified so cheaply? That they were content to live under the boots of the Vanguard, gnawing at scraps? Perhaps it was true for fools like Misrax, his awoken, raised hatchling, and cowards like the Empty Weaver. But Spider's acquiescence would not be so easily bought. In fact, Ahura thought, the Spider could probably own this settlement within a year. The generosity and goodwill of House Light would soon crumble to greed and hubris, as they all did. And once Spider's syndicate had a foothold, they would make the Vanguard pay in glimmer, weapons, ether, and blood. So the Vanguard's got a lot of problems on like literally every single side of this right now. And it's not great.
Mm-mm.
This is not good. Not at all. Not even a little bit. This is like actually low-key terrifying for the Vanguard right now. They have a coup in their own house, and then they've got this shit going on.
Yeah.
So it's not really.
They need to figure it out. They need to
just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good.
No, it's not.
It's not great.
You think this is going to be a odd question, but do you think the Vanguard gets eliminated at some point? Like they just do away with the Vanguard and then they just
I think the Vanguard will be gone by the time the Witch Queen rolls around. Like if it's not done by the time Witch Queen does, I think the events of that probably will cause the Vanguard to break.
You think they'll be
because, I mean, they're singing Savathun's song in the streets right now. Like it's pretty clear that at some point something's gonna give in terms of the city and the leadership. Yeah. Like something's gonna happen. So I'm curious to see what that ultimately is.
Yeah. The city's going to get destroyed and the Helm's going to take off. And then
I think so.
And then the Helm is like to fight Savathun, they're going to hover out in space past like Jupiter. Maybe that's when we get Titan back. And then like you can have a base on Titan, maybe it's a different section of Titan. And then Savathun is on the Dreadnought around Saturn.
Yeah, I've thought for a while that we're going to take control of the Dreadnought. Mm-hmm. My personal fan theory was that the city would get eliminated, and like, of course, by the end of Destiny, 3 or whatever, we'll be rebuilding the city, or when we leave for another galaxy. But it would be a fleet, and it would be the ships of Dead Orbit, the Dreadnought, and the Leviathan. Well, the Leviathan's gone. That thing's toast.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that Mithrax's ships, Keitel's remaining army, and us would create an alliance against Savathun.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, we've been saying this, like, it felt like it last year during, like, Shadowkeep and everything, and it's really felt like it more now that this is, with Saint back, with Mithrax on board, we've met and defeated Keitel's champions in combat. This, and I don't believe for a second we won't have to kill her eventually.
Yeah.
But for right now, this is like the Avengers Assemble moment of the Destiny universe, and we're progressing very, very, very quickly towards that.
Yeah, Keitel definitely feels like the enemy of my enemy is my friend type situation, right? Where definitely gonna,
Yeah, it absolutely is. So, I mean, she even makes it really clear, like, this is not a truce, this is a pause, essentially.
Right.
But she's even told Zavala, in the lore that we've read, that, she trusts him to keep his promise. She does not trust whoever might replace him.
Right.
So, I'm curious.
I'm
very curious to see how this goes.
I wonder if that's a little foreshadowing, too, where, like, if Zavala gets captured or dies or whatever, and, you know what I mean? Like, maybe that could cause a rift. I don't see him dying. I don't know. This feels like a conversation we could have for another couple hours, but I know we don't have that kind of time. So,
yeah.
Man, dude, every time we get to Lore Corner, it's like my favorite part of the show, because then I just start like thinking about all the different things that could happen or that might happen, or you know what I mean? Like,
right.
So
curious. I want to see what happens.
I know. I just want to see what happens. But,
all right. Well, you want to go ahead and get us out of here, Corey?
Yeah, we can get out of here. I want to thank everybody for watching and or listening. Remember, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave us a nice review. 5 stars, all that stuff. We're also on Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts. So subscribe there. Josh, where can we find you?
As always, Twitter @Josh_Finn 2 N's, and I'm also doing Q-List right now. Q-List How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah, nice.
And of course, E3.
Yeah.
You can find me on E3 coverage.
Yes, you will be all over some E3 coverage with me. So you can find me at I am Corey HT on Twitter. You can find me hosting the Boss Rush podcast every Sunday night, live on Monday mornings on your podcast service. Remember, you can follow us at Tower Casuals on Twitter. You can email the show at towercasuals@gmail.com. We want your questions. We see enough of you listening. We want your questions. We want your input. So please give it to us. I want to thank everybody for watching and or listening, and we will see you next week, Guardians. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.